into YouTube?
Yes, so right now Teams is being used as like the virtual meeting, which we are sharing a screen. So if anyone would be joining online, they would see that screen sharing function. And then, yeah, we do upload the entire video to YouTube.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? The next item is our, in very similar fashion, something that's used by all our staff and students, and this is the Adobe K-12 renewal.
Right, with Adobe, again, most people are individual with, are familiar with Acrobat. That is how we view PDF documents, is probably what it is most utilized for. There is another full suite of tools within Adobe, and that Adobe Pro, like for instance with Photoshop, with Illustrator. Any of our artists out there are probably more familiar with those aspects of Adobe. This is something that ensures equitable access to all of these design features and tools. All teachers have that. That is something that we're continually kind of pushing out, because again, the understanding is this is how we open a PDF document, but there are a number of tools out there that are available to all of our users. This also supports cross-curricular creativity. This is something that I'm trying to dabble with Photoshop myself a little bit, but this renewal we're seeking at $29,000 with the potential for slight cost reduction based on the user count. So kind of just looking at that and making sure that that is all accurate.
So right now, we don't really have anything else that we're using for this. This is our one solution. It's been working for us. We're not looking to change away from Adobe. Any questions? The next information item that we'll see in July is the Cambridge ACT preparation support contract. And this is something we've used in the past. Alex will talk about some of the survey data we got from teachers and our thoughts that we should continue with this.
So we know that we made the switch over from the SAT to the ACT during the 24-25 school year. If you were watching those board meetings at the time, we were seeking for a partner. We spoke with many teachers. We also created a committee called the Curriculum Instruction and Assessment Committee, of which we went through a number of different platforms out there on who to partner with. That committee, we took it from 3 options to, we went with Horizon. The feedback information and talking with teachers and working with them, the feedback from Horizon was not good. There were mistakes within the platform. That was the largest thing where a lot of our teachers felt like they should almost be paid by Horizon because they were helping improve their platform with the number of mistakes that we had. They were very responsive, don't get me wrong. They were very willing to work with us on that, but ultimately, with talking with teachers and getting their feedback, the other platform we were utilizing at the same time was Cambridge. So Cambridge, we were utilizing an actual paper booklets from Cambridge. So this was something given and scaled for our 9th and 10th graders versus our 11th graders, and had those books available and paper books. And that was very well received. We were looking to expand that option, but shifting now towards an online version. So all of those materials that we were utilizing with paper, trying to shift that over to that digital aspect, because that is how our students take the test. We need them to get a little bit more practice within that digital aspect. I will admit there is a little mixed feelings about that from the teachers. They did like those paper copies, but that review was a little bit mixed. What we're looking to also take on is the ability to give the practice assessments through Cambridge as well. So that is something that we are looking at with Cambridge. The overall investment is going to be $150,000. We are also separate to this exploring that boot camp option, but we're still kind of working through that. We're not ready to bring that to the board yet. We're still kind of fine tuning that. And we do have at least one principal at the moment at PMSA that's coming on board July 1. So we want to give them an opportunity to kind of vet that a little bit more on that opportunity. But Cambridge is something that we're very strong with and got great feedback from our teachers.
Any questions?
Is this something that so students could practice with at home as well, like flashcards and take supplemental lessons?
Yes, there are a number of digital options within that platform that students can take advantage of. It's not just that practice test. There's things that we can assign through the teachers can assign and the students can work on themselves as well.
Okay, and is it just a website or do they also have like an app for students on their phone?
I have to look at that one. I'm not sure if it's an app or if it's all cloud-based. I'm not sure.
Okay,
I'm looking over to Miss Lee to see if she
Yeah,
knows that up.
Currently, we're not using, if it is an app, we're currently not using that
I
app.
believe it's all cloud-based, but let me look at that
Okay.
just to make sure.
just thinking like if students were, just reviewing on the bus or whatever, instead of, having their laptop, it's easier on theirs. Just, yeah.
Any other questions? So thanks to just a bit of a warning, before I hit these slides. These next two, items are under current RFP right now. So our ability to answer some questions that you may have, we just cannot answer, for legal purposes, because we do not want to give anybody an advantage. When you're under an RFP, there are certain things you can't say. But we just wanted to call to your attention that at the July meeting, we will have the RFP process will have passed. We would have been able to do our evaluations, and we would be making a recommendation at the July meeting based on what we did for the RFPs. And so that is for cosmetology and for barber contracts. And Alex, I just want to speak at a very high level.
Yeah.
I mainly just want just to remind the board that these have gone up for RFP. So the recommendation that we'll be bringing in July for information approval in August are based on the findings of this RFP process.
We're very familiar with the partners that we have had, and given that cost and following our board policy, that's why we sought out that RFP. Dr. Brandon's been a great partner with the business office as well, kind of leading that effort. And I'm going to pitch it over to him in a second. But something that we are looking at closely is just the number of students. There's been a lot of also talk around our actual kits as well that students are getting. We have reached out to all of these different potential partners. Again, the business office has been a big help with that, to let them know. It's been posted out in the newspaper. But we're looking at a very similar service that we have been getting, but we just know that we want to kind of expand that out there and make sure that we honestly are following that board policy. It's 460 to make sure we're in alignment with that, given the size and quantity and number of students. And quite frankly, the return that we've been receiving with our current partners. And they may be the partners that we go with. We will see once that RFP closes, that bid process opens, and we unseal those.
And so that's very similar to the barber as well.
Yep.
It's for both Cosmo and barber, similar things. Any questions? Okay, as we discussed earlier, we will be bringing administrative contracts for you. This would be, again, not for approval, but for an information discussion item. We will be bringing that at the July 8th board meeting. Are there any questions? In a similar fashion, we'll be looking at the COLA. The COLA will be aligned to the CPIW, and that is the index that districts around here will use. And so again, this would be for our special payroll employees. Any questions? This one, I maybe just want to take a moment and just talk about board travel to the ISB. This is the III conference. I think, and I would encourage all of us to attend. I know in the past, some members have gone. I think especially as we are a newer board, we're coming together, I think it'd be a great idea for all of us to come. We have budgeted for this. The dates of it are November 21st to the 23rd. There is a pre-conference on the 20th. If anyone would like to attend, please let me know. The nearby hotels, when I looked, are about $233 to $250 per night. And those are discounted rates because these are much more expensive given where the location of this conference is. The fees are about $1,000 depending if you just do the 21st, 22nd, and 23rd, another $500 or $600 if you want to do the conference. But again, encourage all board members to attend, understand if you cannot, and there will be some high-level leaders from the administration that would be in attendance as well. For one thing, if we do have a high number of board members attending it, I would like to bring Janessa with as well. And I think there's good training opportunities for her, and can also help us organize our day, keep us keep us running smoothly, because for those of you that have been there, it's a very busy, very large, very beneficial conference. Are there any questions?
Not a question, but a statement, ladies, do not wear heels. It's hard way.
Heard.
Trust me.
Dress comfortably, and also I think it'd be helpful because the early registration is cheaper, so the longer we wait, the more expensive it gets, so I think we could all kind of look at our calendars and get to Janessa, who helps with our scheduling and everything, and let her know, and like within the week, in a week.
It's registration is open.
Because registration is already open, so we need to go quickly, especially if we want to stay nearby hotel instead of far off, which is doable, but
Don't commute.
it's it's hard.
I just heard that too, yeah.
Yeah, I would not recommend commuting. You will miss out on
A lot.
an experience. There's experience, networking experiences that happen after the session. You would not want.
But maybe if, is a week enough time to like let Janessa know so that we can get an internal head count and start planning? Is that okay for everybody?
Yeah.
Moving on. Alex, are you taking Lisa, or is Jim taking this one?
Yeah, I'll start off and I'll pitch it over to Jim. I know he's been working closely with our world language teachers on this. So this is the higher learning curriculum, and this is something we kind of want a little bit of feedback, I think, from the board as well. This comes just upfront, comes at a substantial cost for this renewal, something that our world language teachers have had, but we're looking at about $370,000 investment from the board. This is again just as an information item now, but this is for curriculum for our Spanish and French classes, not advanced placement. You'll see that when we go to the next slide here in a moment. But Mr. Calieres, who supports our EL and world languages, has worked closely with our teachers on selecting a curriculum that is going to be best fit our needs of our students and in alignment with our teachers. Mr. Calieres, is there anything?
Well, and I think, go ahead, Jim, I'm sorry.
Just that this is a renewal. It's something that they're very comfortable using. It's just an updated version, which gives some, some updated materials. We're getting classroom sets for all of our world language classes in French and Spanish, and then also the online version so that they can have access to that as well. It is a substantial amount of money, I understand that, but this is something that we have been using for some time. We've looked at several different curricula, and this was the one that the team decided they wanted to go with.
So I will say our pre-purchase review committee that Dr. Hill talked about at the last board meeting, I will say we put you through the ringer. And the conversation was, and this is what I'm posing to this board, is do we pull the trigger and buy this curriculum? It's about $371,000. The texts that we have currently right now are about 6 years old. So it's, it is coming time for this renewal. If we don't do this renewal, we would have to spend, less money, but we'd still be spending money because we don't have enough books right now that are usable. So if we don't do the update now, we'd have to, I don't have the exact number of books, but we would just have to buy replacement books as opposed to just going with the full cycle.
So then we'd be off cycle, right? We have some new books that are still 6 years old.
No, we would buy some of the old books.
So we would buy the old books, but it's a 6-year-old.
It's a
book that we're
6-year-old
buying.
book.
Okay.
Right.
And
So
so
the one thing that I want to do, when we bring this in July, I want us to have a better visual for the board to see. And what this would be is to show you when we will be replacing all of our textbooks from one year to the next. This is going to be helpful for us because we need to also figure out our budget. Right, so we don't ever want to be surprised and say, whoa, this is $800,000 in textbooks we need to buy that we didn't know about. So we could have a clear cycle and we could show it could be a 5-year cycle, a 6-year cycle, a 7-year cycle, why we're choosing that adoption cycle, and we can then start budgeting in the future. Thinking, planning for this so we know that this is going to be a sunk cost for that upcoming budget.
I will say we are budgeted for this, and just kind of going back a little bit, I think most recently with Jenny, with this Sparta and Mrs. Hickson, I believe And Mr. Ocampo, we approved Savas for English. Even last year, we went with some science and some social studies. So we are in a good place, right? But to Mr. Mohib's point, having kind of that comprehensive, holistic look across all of our departments and kind of where we are, I think that'll give you guys a much better kind of viewpoint as to where we are.
A question, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna ask, so this is for two languages. Have we ever had any interest in other languages other than the two mentioned? And, does this program, or could this program include other opportunities if there was enough interest?
So, in short, no, we did explore, I think, Japanese here through a grant, and that ended up falling through. And so exploring other languages, we haven't. Right now, I think even French, there's just one at each school. So even that one, just trying to get enough interest to have a full-time, for a full-time teacher for that. It's been more difficult where Spanish is the more predominantly chosen language to take.
I was just curious what the general climate was. Thank you.
So this curriculum program and supports, is it a term licensing, or is it access to the plethora of resources for perpetuity, or you know what I mean?
It's a 6-year contract.
6 year.
Yeah, access to all resources.
Okay,
And then also we got the hard copies for a classroom set for each classroom.
which is how many classrooms?
I don't have that.
Okay,
And we can look at the employee kind of see the number of teachers. It's
30, there's 83 sections created right now, 35 courses. So we're looking at probably 35, 35 courses offered. So that would be 35 class sets.
okay.
Any questions? And again, we don't need an answer now. I just wanted to call that out. And this is something we will not have decided until August. Moving forward is similar. This is for the AP curriculums for our world languages. And so this is a much smaller cost. I don't know, Alex or Jim, if you're talking through this one.
I'll start. So with the AP side, so we know that we just recognized some students that earn the seal and combination of biliteracy. Bringing that up because predominantly when we are assessing students via the STAMP for S assessment, for that being the assessment for the second language, predominantly we've been selecting students in Spanish or French 3 and above, and most of those accommodations and the seals have been coming from those advanced placements. So trying to find something again that meets the needs and is aligned with the College Board. What we were not seeing with Vista versus Azulejo. Anything to add, Mr. Kellyers?
Just that we had one teacher pilot it last year at West, and then she brought it to our attention when we were looking for our adoption for the 6-year adoption. We did have a vendor come and show us all the, the bells and whistles as well. And Azulejo, like he said, it has the AP literature piece to it. So they have access to all of the AP literature that is on the AP exam for literature and culture. And it's done in order, in sequential order. They have access to like a former AP exam that they can look at and practice portions as well for the AP exam. So, and this used to be just for this one teacher at West, but as you all know that some of our IB classes are converting to AP classes as well at the schools. So we're gonna have more AP Spanish teachers, which will need this version in order to prepare them for the AP literature and culture.
Does any of these tests or even seal correspond to the CEFR language levels?
I don't know. I'll have to look at that one.
Okay, because like thinking about it in practicality, right? So say these students like want to, be a resident by the country or like, be certified bilingual in recognized by other entities, right? Like A1, B1, C1, C2, whatever. Just wondering if there's that pathway, right?
That's something I can look into.
Awesome. Well, thank you. And sorry for all my question, but I'm just.
No, great.
Yeah, thank you.
Any other questions? So this is more of a discussion item. We wanted to just gauge from you and get some feedback. At the July meeting, we will be bringing dates to consider for approval at the August meeting. Our dates for our parent engagement committee meetings. Now, I know as we've started with this committee of the whole, this is one committee that just does not fit with this committee of the whole structure. And we want to make sure, I know that increasing community engagement is a priority of this board. So I do think this is another reason to have this be a standalone committee. But, two questions that I had as I'm thinking about this, and I know others may have more that we could discuss, but, how can we drive better attendance at some of these events? I saw some where, we had hundreds of people in the room and others where it was, obviously less than that. And then are there any specific topics we should be considering or streams of topics that we should be considering for this coming year for our community engagement meetings?
I think I mentioned this before, but I think it would be good if we can put some surveys out and we ask the community, what are some of the things that they would like to talk about? What are the best times for them what's a good time for them to be able to come to these type meetings? Just put some surveys out and see what kind of feedback that we get. I think we should start there. And I also have a question to Jenny and also Mrs. Hickson, like, what do you think were some of the issues when you rolled this out before, and what do you think we should move on?
Well, that would be a question for Jenny, because for me,
Oh, and David, sorry, in the corner.
answer, superintendent's, question. One thing that I noticed with my community with policy, is people like to eat. And they love home cooked meals. And so even if you couldn't, do a home cooked meal, have something for them. Because they're often coming from work. And it's a matter of hospitality. You are inviting them into your home.
So there. So start there. That's a good start. Good budget.
How often did you have these meetings? Were they once a month or?
I try to do it once a month. I think there were some initial growing pains. I didn't have an administrator that was working with me to do those, so that was kind of difficult because I was kind of there on my own. There was no streaming, there was no admin help, right? I was just kind of in the library by myself with parents, which was okay. But there needs to be a little bit more structure and support for you because you don't know how to use I don't know how to use the district. The only thing where I don't have access, to streaming and things like that. So having those dates planned out ahead of time and then making sure, Mr. Mohip's going to make sure that you have an admin contact that is designated and dedicated to your running of those meetings and that you can discuss ahead of time, what the agenda is, any snacks, beverages, the location, right? Because the location can be determined, but having some kind of longer term plan is helpful instead of on the fly when it's harder to mobilize district staff to support. But I think it would also be important to work with the parent coordinators at the school. So when you talk about a survey, right, I would assume that our parent coordinators are surveying their building's parents, right? Trying to figure out the interest level and what's the best time for them. So I feel like having some kind of discussion with them as well and what works, what doesn't for specific buildings, but this is for all three at the same time, this level of engagement. So, I mean, and it is hard to find what's best, but I think if you have availability, right, because you have a job, you have a family, even having something potentially on the weekends or things like that might help because I think it was hard because my availability was 5:30. That's not good for everybody, right? So I think that a lot of that, you have to make sure that you're protecting yourself and your time.
And part of the reorg that we did and you all approved was to have, really shift those those coordinators that we had, that were assigned to schools to really be assigned to the district office. And there's still be supporting the schools in a very similar way, but we wanted to have an extra emphasis in changing their title and their job description to be parent and community engagement. And that's what the word has to be. And now we have a communications team, we have additional specialists. And so they can carry some of that, they can take on some of that work of creating newsletters and creating flyers. So they could free Corey and Gail up to really be out in the community, engaging families and really helping families. Right? We want them to be advocates, not just, we don't want to just engage with them. We want to be out in our community, helping and supporting them.
So we have one parent coordinator at East and then one at West. Do we have one here at PMSA?
We don't.
Okay. But we have, and we also have parent
But
teacher.
they'll still be able to support.
Okay.
On the East and West, both have a Title I pack and a BPAC.
That's good.
And I know PMSA has a PTO.
And I think we have a district-wide BPAC.
Yeah, the BPAC is more
It's
district-wide,
district-wide,
right?
okay.
And we want to scale all of those up.
Yes.
So, I don't think anybody in this room is really satisfied with our level of engagement right now. And part of that, I think, is because of our own outreach. Right, so we can't just say like, hey, parents aren't showing up. We really haven't done the surveys. We haven't really been out into the communities. We haven't been at the events. We haven't, I know we have just not done enough. And so we're looking to really make a change and make a difference in this coming year.
I definitely think there's a missing a portion of the advertising and marketing, not really market, but advertisement to the community. I mean, posting about it the week before it happens, that's not really getting enough engagement. I'm already looking at the calendar for 3-4 months from now, trying to see where things fit in, and that's part of parent and community. And they have a lot of things going on and coming on the fly, like, hey, we have the meeting. You know, we really, next meeting, I really plan to have like a true outline, from dates to topics, to get us going until we get the engagement from the community and parents to see. I want everyone to focus. This is my desire. It depends on kind of what the parents and community end up coming back and desiring. But every time we have a meeting, focusing on what's currently happening. So in August, I really wanted to be focused on getting back to school and what parents need to know, preparing them, what resources we have, and making it not just a sit down meeting, but more like a community fair where I hope, this is just a hope, and this is just something I'm throwing out there, is having someone at different stations to kind of help people with their questions and what things do they need to know, you know, representative from East, a representative from West, so one from PMSA, expectations, all those different things just to get us going for the school year. And do a really big push for new parents. And getting them involved. So I think if we can get them involved freshman year, we may be able to grab them for the next 4 years. So just kind of my thought process for right now.
I think like as a district and as a board, we should be present at things like open house at East and West. And like, I know even as a parent with a student at a school, I get very little notice about when that's happening, right? But as a board, not all of 7 of us, right? But like, we should have a school plan or calendar of what's happening so that we can kind of split that up between us and make sure that we're hitting these in-school events too. Because like, it would be helpful to have a board presence at open house, right?
For any other community.
And I mean, yeah,
You know, you had a full weekend of Juneteenth events. We should have had a table and so people can come to us and ask us questions and we can pass out information and let people know what's on the upcoming calendar. I think going forward, I think that's pretty important for us, like you said, to be at those.
and not don't bring them to us, but we have to like go to them.
Yeah.
Like, where are they? Go find them.
And unfortunately, and I'm just gonna be really transparent here, the only time that the community, because I'm a community activist, the only time the community sees people is when they want to run for election, or they want Maria run for election. And that's not fair. So you need to be out there. And yes, it was hot this weekend, but I was at several Zoom events.
And it was nice because almost the entire board was out at some of the events. And people noticed it. I've heard from people saying how great it was to see us there and to be in the community. And, you know, unfortunately, it's a shock for them. Right. And so we're trying to change, we're trying to change the understanding of how we communicate, how we engage with the full Proviso Township. And so I think we'll get there by getting those tents and getting some shirts and just something to just kind of brand us as, hey, we're here in the community. I want to get to the point when somebody is setting up an event, they're like, oh, we should make sure Proviso Township's there, not us searching the calendars, right? So we'll get there. It's just, it's a significant shift that we're trying to make. It's this paradigm is shifting where we really want to be in this community.
Is it, us asking each of the villages to say, hey, like on a monthly basis, can you send us what activities and programs or things that, right, like that we should know about so that we can get engaged with? I think that maybe setting up some sort of cadence that, hey, this is what we would like from you, and then we can, of course,
And so right now, Corey and Gail are doing that work
Okay.
to try and make that calendar for us. LT is looking for tents, and I don't want just like a tent, I want it branded. It's gotta look nice. It has to have,
I did that last year. I sent an email last year.
yeah.
Exact vendors, because I've done kind of a research on that for my own stuff, so I'm out at a lot of events in the heat, and yeah, it's definitely possible.
Yeah.
And it's expensive, but, they last a lot longer than the cheaper ones. It's better than buying a bunch of cheap ones.
Yeah, we're gonna put some money into community engagement. And it's not just going out to the events, even to our own internal events.
Yeah.
Right? To make 1,000 hot dogs doesn't really cost that much money. Right? In the grand scheme of things, if we can get, if we get 1,000 to 2,000 people to show up to our basketball games, to our football games, just get people excited about our community again. Alex and I, and Lisa Roach, we cooked for about 300, 400 people, right? And that, people are excited about that. It didn't really cost a lot of money. Right? It would have cost a lot more if we tried to like go out and cater this, right? So we're not trying to be super basic, like we're still trying to live within our means. But if a family knows, like, hey, I come to the football game and I can feed my family, right? Like, to your point, board member Dixon, we're all busy, right? So I want to come to an event, it has to serve me in some way, it needs to help me in some way. And even if the help is just remove the barrier, figure out what I'm cooking for dinner on Friday, right? Because I don't know about y'all, but that is the fight in my house every day. So what are we cooking? That's the first thing my wife says before the good morning is, what are we cooking for dinner? So just, if we could just help our community. To your point, like, come to the meeting to help you solve a problem that you're having. It shouldn't just be come to a meeting because one, we want to have a meeting, right? To say that we had it.
Right.
And it's because we want to share some information that we could have just put in a newsletter. So there's time.
Two more points.
Yes.
After I have one.
Okay.
So, Bill Festival.
I was just about to say.
I knew you were. I just said one. August 8th, 9th, and 10th. I will be there all 3 days from sun to sundown. Have not missed that event.
Same here,
Okay.
3 days.
All of the communities have that, so I think that will be a good target for us if we can get the tents and everything else. I think that will be a great start and a great target.
Yeah.
And we see it some of the best because all the communities have.
It has
Right.
something.
And we can look at making it a little things, whether we're doing registrations at the events, whether we're passing out the community, like passing out our calendar, because we need to create that calendar and pass it out at the beginning of the year. Like, here's everything, here are the
Put it on a
performances,
magnet.
here's the freshman nights, the sophomore nights, like, all of that it needs to be on that calendar. And so that's something we're working on by the start of school to have and be ready to put out. So I will push to get that done by the 8th, so that if we are at this, and I hope we are at this Bellwood event, we can start passing this information out. We did have we were in partnership with, the Safe Summer Initiative, and we had a movie on the football. It wasn't well attended, right? But for those that came, it was a great event. And the feedback I got was, you know, what high school students don't really want to come to watch a movie at high school. And that might be right, right? But those students that were with their parents, those children that were with those parents will eventually be our students. So for me, it doesn't necessarily matter if there are current students. We were able to bring back past graduates to come back with their children that were of younger ages to be part of something at a high school that means something. Right? So we're looking to buy our own equipment so we can continue to do these things. If the summer continues to be 1,000 degrees, like, we'll look at doing these inside to give parents an opportunity to cool off. And if we could also, you know, spend some money and feed them, and it'll just help, just kind of revive this place. So, you know, I'm excited about that. There were some more points.
Yeah, one more thing, I circle back on that community engagement. I know that, you know, most of these, meetings will be face to face. I still wanna give people an option or Zoom, because you got some parents working 2 and 3 jobs,
Yeah.
and they will never be available to come to these meetings. So I don't wanna take that off the table, I still wanna have that as an option.
I definitely agree with that. The same way I said, for our first, but back to school before school starts. If we can get on Zoom and everyone comes on a different, you know, a different set time. Like say, for instance, we'll be speaking, parents know that they can chime in at this time to get some important information, and get feedback. And I think surveys at these events will be helpful. The community is already there. And if we can get them to fill out a quick survey.
Or maybe just a suggestion.
Or and it can be quick. And one thing I can say, people don't want to write on a sheet of paper. So we need a tablet stand with a tablet sitting there. They do.
I was gonna say, Microsoft
Yeah.
has a wonderful QR code opportunity. Yeah.
We just need to get people, you know, and when they complete their survey, they get a sticker, or people like free stuff. I don't care what it is. It can be a pencil, it's free, and it's like, oh, I got it. So just something to encourage them. A lot of our teenagers from our schools attend these events also. You know, and it will be nice to give them maybe, community service hours for working at the booth. Because guess what? If they're working in, their parents then they show up just because their kid is volunteering, and they may tell somebody.
Any other questions, any other thoughts before we move on? Okay, now Alex can take the next one and probably kick it to Mike, who's been working for months on a cell phone task force to get to this point of recommendation.
Yes, we are very, very pleased with this one. This is a very, very well attended task force that had 4 meetings. And big thanks to Mr. Taylor there and Mr. Swanson kind of leading that effort. A number of other individuals, Mr. Kelly was there, a couple. It's something that is very important to a lot of people. So yes, I do believe Mr. Swanson was not able to be in attendance in person, but he's available online. Mr. Swanson, are you there? Yeah. Yeah, you want to walk us through your highlights here from this task force?
Oh, no, great follow-up, Mike. Good job.
I have a question. In the document, it says there's a recommended link for purchase. Last year, the board approved a purchase of cell phone packets for every classroom. So
Yes.
do we not still have those?
So to that point, yes, we know that we did spend some effort on that. Come to find out that it was not something purchased for every single class. It was more of who was going to actually utilize this and taking ownership on that aspect of that actual follow through of what we discussed per our policy. Like, for instance, West had a lot more implementation of this and it was just more inconsistent here at East. So taking the recommendations here and with a lot more of that follow through and expectations and having that be clearer on our part, well, I think will be much better.
And we are not allowing opt-out option for anybody, correct?
So what the task force was able to do, and I appreciate LT and Mike's leadership on this, was really confirming for us. We know that cell phones need to be out of the hands of students during instructional time because it's a distraction. We know that students need to be able to learn how to live with the anxiety of knowing that their phone may be buzzing and they can't just look at it. That's a real thing. And we know that administrators have to step up and have to help support teachers, especially in the beginning when we start this. There are going to be students that push back, and that's why I appreciate this team really thinking about the consequences and putting it into an MTSS mind frame. So we're not just jumping from 0 to 10, we're putting in some progressive steps for students to help them understand what they're doing, why it's wrong, moving away from teacher enforcement to administrator enforcement to parent involvement. And then hopefully where it never gets to a point where students lose all privileges of their vote. But the only way this works, and we're having conversations, we had conversations today, is around this concept of collective responsibility. So everyone in the building, from custodians to nurses, to our teachers, administrators, superintendent, everyone understands that these are the rules that we must follow. And we all have a sense of responsibility to ensure that these rules are followed and our students do as asked. So that's a concept that we've been talking about with our teams as collective responsibility. It's something we'll continue to talk through because it's not just around a cell phone implementation, right? When we start thinking about some of the other implementations that we'll be doing, it's this need for all of us to realize our own state and our own responsibility and our own contribution to seeing us being successful.
I think this is great, and I know by Illinois law, we have to have a cell phone policy. My question is, do the parents, are they supportive of this? Or
Mike, do you want to talk about any parent involvement you had on the committee?
I have a question. Have we had any incidents where a student grabbed the wrong phone, forgot their number, or any sort of, because I know that would be me. I would pop my phone into a number and then I would forget the number, and then mindlessly grab the phone. I don't know. Have we had any incidents?
Not since I've been. I was gonna say, I haven't heard of that since I've been here, and it could happen. Right, so that's something that very much can happen. What we have seen happen more so is that students putting phones in the holders that are fake phones. And so that's going to our MTSS enforcement.
That's fabulous.
But the that's like, this is something we could tie back to like the parent and community engagement, right? Like you can have somebody, you have Mr. Sponsor, Mr. Taylor there to say like, hey, we did this, all this work. If you have a parent that's like, I want my kid to have their phone, they could be at your meeting and explain the research and that they did and how they got to there and then tell them, hey, look up Ring Central and here's the numbers we got, right? So like provide them that pathway to feel more secure and trusting of that whole process.
Just to give back, when we get ready to start back to school, preparing the parents and community as to what the expectation is, even with this community.
And I spoke about earlier, this paradigm shift this district is making, right? And this concept of collective responsibility. Our own staff needs to understand that if we're taking the phones away from students, that when a parent calls, they should, well, the phones need to be answered. And that's a common complaint. I can't get a hold of the school, so I call my child. And if we're taking the phone away, how do I get, if there's an emergency, how do I get them? So I know that's the pushback, so we have to be consistently better at that. And so, you know, I think Let's Talk is not gonna answer the phone for them, but it's gonna make sure that there's accountability on our staff to make sure that they're responding. And then we need to start, identifying why phone calls aren't being answered.
Are you gonna have metrics tied to implementation? For example, I don't know, 10 classrooms had successful implementation, all students put their phones in the pouch.
We can build it into a walkthrough tool. We haven't discussed that yet as much as like a daily. But as the central office, you know, when we were doing our walkthroughs, it was one of the first things we did. So when I came in, we started doing walkthroughs once a week at schools, and then we were collecting that information. So that's something we would continue to collect and build that information on. And, you know, and I really wanted to see how many were using the holders and how many classrooms were kids using phones.
Yep.
And clearly the classrooms that teachers were using the phone holders, we didn't have kids using their phones. So it's a pretty direct correlation. So we just need to get better at enforcing that policy and getting teachers and students comfortable. Any other questions, comments? All right, moving on. I just wanted to have a discussion. So we just had a very wonderful graduation ceremony, and I know in the last board meeting, this was a topic that wanted to be discussed. As I thought about some things that I was wondering about, the date, the location, and then also the format of the ceremony. What is, how long will it take? Who the speakers will be? How we review remarks of students, and then how do we decide which schools go first, second, and third? And so I would start with the date and the location. And so one thing that I'm considering and we're talking through is we end the senior school year 1 week early. What parents don't understand is that those days that the students don't come to school are unexcused absences. And so there are a lot of districts that will have the seniors included go through the full calendar of the year, get their full 176, not 171 school days, and then graduate that Saturday or Sunday after the school year closes. So that's something that I would like to discuss to see if that's something we would like to do. The location, you know, it's a great location. It does come with a cost. And I don't know if it's a challenge for our community to get down there. And then when we talk about the ceremony, well, anything that you guys want to talk about there, it's game. So if anyone wants to say.
So I can start the date, with us ending, 5 or so days early. But the students who are big on their perfect attendance, or the parents who are big on their perfect attendance, and that could be a challenge. Was there ever a true reason why we went a week early? Was it a cheaper cost that we were targeting? Like, was there?
It was historical practice of them getting out earlier than the rest of the school year. The only, no, that's.
That's the.
I think it makes sense to have them at the same time as everybody else.
Agree.
Yeah.
That seems disruptive for no purpose, right? If there's no intentionality behind letting them out a couple days, what have you done? What purpose is it?
And everybody can kind of celebrate the end of the year at the same time.
Yeah.
But then the seniors were celebrating and having their days. And then but then everyone else did it later. So now all of a sudden your end of the year becomes this 2 week
Mhm.
duration as opposed to just one. So I think there are a lot of reasons to move to just, and also I think we are entrusted to educate our kids. We're supposed to do it for 176 days. And I think we should schedule that out so that it's the full 176 days of student attendance. Now, I know the students will not like this. But I know a lot of professionals that do this. What's that?
Do we do anything special for our students or have the possibility of like that last Friday? Like, I don't know, when I was in school, we did like a senior ditch day on the
They have
last
senior
day.
ditch days, they have their prom, they have senior luncheons.
Okay,
So all of those things would happen. They have the Great American Night.
okay,
So there's a lot of things and a lot of ways that we celebrate.
okay, perfect.
And those things are all taking away from instruction time, and now we're giving them 5 less days of instruction. time.
Yeah.
Right, like,
And not aligned to this, but it's another topic that I'm gonna bring to you in the future, is just senior activities in general.
Mhm.
So I was not crazy as, we had some significant differences between some senior activities between the schools. Where Proviso East luncheon was, I think on boat, and Proviso West was in the gym. So, I think we just need to align to make sure that we're having early conversations with those senior sponsors to make sure that we're really giving kids the same or very similar experiences as they're exiting our district.
Being a parent, I was very disappointed. And that's been an experience, so I definitely,
How did we feel about the location, other than it was cold?
oh, it's fine.
Well, they're very-
Yeah, it's fine. So,
and I asked in the past about locations and, I mean, the locations closer to us, like Dominican and Concordia are just not big enough for us to have, students have a larger amount of tickets, right? Because you don't wanna limit that ticket window either.
So Alex, let's check with them tomorrow to see if they can get a date that works with our calendar. And that's really gonna be the determining factor. If we want to stay at that location, we have to make sure that the date we want is available. We could also do a Sunday. That's not, schools sometimes do Sundays. It's not ideal. But we, I think we have to also think about if we did a Saturday after the kids graduated, there were some students that would not have been able to go to their own graduation. So if we did graduation the Saturday after our freshmen, sophomores, and juniors finished, so the boys track team would have had to make the hard decision of whether to go compete in the state tournament or not. And as we know, Mackay won the state championship. Had that graduation been on Saturday, we may have made the decision to go to graduation as opposed to the state meet and would have forfeited that opportunity to have this. So there is a consideration for a Sunday as well. Although I know that it is some other commitments that families have.
Most HBCU graduations on Mother's Day weekend, or you may want to stay away from that. Because you're forcing parents to make a decision to go to their high school child's graduation or their college child's graduation.
Well, I think our graduation will be late enough in the month, right? I think Mother's Day is usually mid-May.
Second Sunday.
Second Sunday.
Yeah, so we're probably looking third or fourth Sunday in May.
Yeah, the most important thing that I heard was the activities, the sports activities and how there would have to be a choice. And I don't think you should have to choose between graduation or competing.
And our girls did have to choose.
Yeah.
Because of this, the day of the state meet. And one girl was able to just rush back from the state meet to make the graduation. But if East had gone at any other time slot, she would have missed her own graduation, or she would have been chosen, she would have had to choose to not go to a state competition. Which she had worked 4 years to get to. So this, no. So that's why I would make an argument for a Sunday. The duration, each of them was about less than 2 hours long. And so I kind of looped these together because I know there was a request for speakers to be the graduation. Now, this time we did not have speakers. Graduation, because the ceremonies were about 1:45. If we were to bring speakers in, we would be pushing or guest speakers, we would be pushing the graduation ceremony over 2 hours. I just want to make sure we're okay with that.
I think the speakers, if you're coming to speak, you're like given a time period, right?
it's the same on the time, I would think that you and Jenny spoke, you know,
I think it's important to, have a speaker, someone that's relatable, motivational and inspiring.
Yeah.
I think that's very important. I had a speaker at my high school graduation. I remember it.
Yeah.
So, I mean, and my college graduation. So I think, I mean, they're sick of hearing from us.
Right.
Yeah. They want somebody a little bit more relatable that can inspire them and, you know, press them and move them forward. So I think if we can get a speaker, I think that's important.
But then how to,
I think we'll put a time limit on
yeah,
it.
put a time limit.
Maybe 10 to 15 minutes. Longer than Jenny and I spoke,
Yeah.
but you know, I'm not gonna have somebody come and do a guest speaking and kind of sit through all this
2 minutes.
to speak for 3 minutes.
But 10 minutes is a reasonable amount of time.
Yeah.
10 minutes is
At the
reasonable.
same speaker.
But I would love to
for all
have the
three
same, yes,
graduations.
exactly, because it needs to be, you can't have this phenomenal speaker for one and then the other 2 hours, like, everybody should get the same.
It may be difficult to have the same
Yeah.
speaker for all three, because then you're asking them to give up an entire day.
Yeah.
Well, at least the same thing,
Right.
whatever that's gonna be.
Yes, I agree. I agree. Are there any types of individuals we would not want at a graduation?
Religious, I think, just because we're a public institution.
Or if they are religious, not have a religious theme?
Yeah.
Right.
I would really like
I
to,
think you also have, I'm sorry, go ahead.
people from Proviso specifically,
Mhm.
community members.
I think we also have to be very cognizant of elections and election seasons. Because we don't want to give an opportunity to somebody that's running for office to use this as a opportunity to elicit votes. Right, so I think that's something we should also consider.
I think we should look at it into our alumni
Mhm.
to come out.
I agree.
Even if when we are doing it, it's an alumni from West, from East, from TMSA.
Yeah.
You know,
Oh, that's exciting.
And
Yeah.
a great alumni.
yeah.
In regards to just the reviews or remarks, so I just want you to know that if the principals do review the speeches, and I think it's just a reminder of a conversation with our students to remember not to go off script. Right, so, you know, it's always a gamble when you get up there, so you gotta make sure you're choosing the right people. People that you trust to deliver the message that was approved and, you know, not get us in a bad help.
Yeah, there was one
Yes,
that offended me.
yes.
I was like livid. And so I wonder if the principal actually reviewed the student's speech.
I don't know if it was the review of the speech or if there was some ad libbing.
Okay.
But either way, we will get tighter on it. And then whatever order we had this time, I can't remember what was it. Go ahead.
One more thing, in regards to that, I was also offended by that comment. I want to make sure that I'm trying to say this correctly, so I'm just gonna say, it. We have Black and brown issues within our community, and that needs to be addressed. I don't know how we're gonna address that. Maybe we can talk about it for the next board meeting, maybe bring in some, experts in, but this needs to be addressed in this school year. And I don't want any speech, to alienate anyone, because this is everyone's graduation, and, everybody should be able to know what's going on within that graduation. So my second point was, are we thinking about having translators at the graduation?
So this past one, we did have earpieces that parents were able to, but I think that's something we talk about is not only having a translator for our bilingual families, but also sign language. I don't, we may have.
Perfect.
Yeah, they were sitting in a specific section that was translated with the earpiece, and if you're listening, you have one of those earpieces.
So this year, the order was West PMSA East. Next year, we will do East West PMSA, and then the year after that will be PMSA East West. So we'll just have 3-year rotation. So, you know, everybody has to, it's just gonna be the luck of the draw.
Yeah.
Right? It's just how it's gonna roll out, but we just cannot have where one school always has one time break.
Cool, that my hands, not.
That was greatest.
Okay, right.
Just to circle back to the speakers, how do you plan to go about that? Do you, because I know you said that if we want to talk about speakers for next year, we should probably be doing.
I think we could start doing this now. I don't think we need to do it in a formal setting of a board meeting, but I think it's just kind of, let's just get a list of people that we think would be good for this and start seeing what their availability is.
Okay, so you're open to suggestions
Oh,
and
yes.
in the community? Okay.
And they should be sent to you, correct?
Yes,
Okay, perfect.
me and Janessa.
Okay.
She'll help keep it in order.
Perfect.
Any other questions?
Regarding location, just to make sure, in case anyone asks, we don't want to have that at the schools.
I don't think we have the space and the acoustics aren't great. So to do it in the schools, we either do it at the gyms or the field house. And it's, I'm sure they've done it in the past. The gyms are not air conditioned. Right. And if you take it outside, you're
You're gambling.
you risk the weather. So I think that's probably a wise decision. This was many years ago to switch back.
Well,
Yeah,
because some
we're
of
not
them-
there yet.
But we're not there, yeah.
Yeah. Okay, I'm gonna move on. if That's all right.
Yep.
Next, I want to talk about the strategic plan. It's gonna kind of bring together a lot of the things that we were talking here tonight. One thing I failed to put in this slide deck is just this other conversation I started in a weekly board update is also this equity audit that I want to do here in this district. And so been talking to people about this equity audit and leading toward the individual that I wrote about. But that equity audit would also help us, determine some things that will go in the strategic plan. But until we finalize that equity audit, I don't know if everything's going to be embedded to the strategic plan, or if we'll have parts of that equity audit embedded in the strategic plan, yet have a standalone, equity audit plan, that we create. So I just wanted to name that before I went through, before I went through this. But what I'm looking at is to create a 5-year plan. And right, and so for me, this is a different proviso that could really engage with this community. And so while the vendors wanted to do anywhere between 5 to 10 sessions, and 10 was kind of the most that I saw. And I'm seeking to do about 47, well, not about, I'm seeking to do 47 unique events to get feedback from this community. So I understand that undertaking that I'm doing, but this is something that I also did when I was in Youngstown. I have significant experience with strategic planning from school-based all the way up to helping build the strategic plan for the state. I've built strategic plans for other districts, and some of the people that I'm bringing into the district soon also have similar experiences. I do believe that we have the capacity and the capability to build our own strategic plan. I do think that we will need some help in some of the branding and some of the visualization and some of the data dashboards that I'd like to create around it. I do not. Phase 2 is really we go out. Phase 2 is really we go out and do significant community engagement. And so, as I said, 47 engagement opportunities for a multitude of stakeholders is how I envision this, and we'll talk through this. Phase that's from August through September, so it would be a very, just 60 days of just hitting the community. So almost every day we're out there doing something. Phase 3, October through December, is taking all of that information and then analyzing that and drafting plans. What I believe from all of this is that in phase 4, and getting to phase 4, I should say, is bringing iterations of the strategic plan to this board in November and in December with an approval in January. And then where I see a lot of districts make mistakes, they get to this phase 4 of finalizing the plan, but they never communicate the plan. So as we just went to the different stakeholders and built and solicited and elicited all of this information to help us build this plan, we fall short oftentimes in going back to those same groups to say, here is the plan, here's what we came up with. I really need this to be a community-wide undertaking. I want everyone in the Proviso Township, from all 10 of the cities, our feeder districts, our schools, our parents, to really know what is in this plan for a couple of reasons, but mainly because once you as the board approve this plan, that is the work that we're going to do. So when everything and other things come in from the community or coming from the outside, and there's a push for us in one direction or a pull from us for some other resources to be placed somewhere, I want us to be able to say no, right? I want us to be able to say no, because that's not what this agreement is. So as much as this is a strategic plan, it's also a commitment to the community to say, this is what we agreed that we would do. And then phase 5 is just this continual, just consistent motion of providing updates to the community. So quarterly updates to the board, yearly updates to the community in the form of the state of the schools and the state of the district. But then every August coming back to the board to show, here's how we did, here's where we failed in this plan, and here are the course corrections that we're going to make. This will not be, this plan will be evolving, right? So just because we say, these are all the steps we're gonna take over the next 5 years, if something goes awry in year 2 or year 3, we're going to have to make an adjustment. We're not going to change the goals, and we're not going to change the outcomes that we expect to get to, those tangible outcomes that we're going to measure this by. But we may need to change strategies along the way, depending upon how successful or unsuccessful we are as we're moving through this. So phase 1, as I said, administrators will review this plan. We'll look to see what we've done well and consider what we might continue into the next strategic plan. Phase 2, this is where I said 47 unique opportunities. We'll have survey open as well from August 1st to the end of September. And we'll have voices that include students, parents, staff, our foundational schools, that go into those foundational schools, our union leadership, our city leadership, and this Board of Education. As I think about when we would be doing these meetings, we'd have 12 separate meetings with our students. So going to the schools with their 4 lunch periods and talking to students at each of those lunch periods at the 3 of the schools, to really hear from students what it is that they want, and what they expect, and where they believe that our district can go. Looking at holding parent meetings, 6 of them, 2 at each of the buildings, having teacher meetings, 1 at each of the schools, and having staff meetings as well. So not just talking to teachers, right, and saying that teachers are staff. There's unique differences between our teachers and between our staff, like our security guards and our engineer, our custodians and our food service workers. So we want to include them in this plan as well. Looking at citywide meetings. So I haven't set these dates yet, but talking to the mayors about when can I come into your community and meet with your constituents to get feedback from them. So that would be 10 separate meetings. Also having an opportunity for our office admins and for our office staff to have conversations, to give us feedback. Going out to the foundational schools and talking to our 6 districts to ask, when is it that we can come to your schools where we can talk to your parents? Because we want to hear from the parents that are going to be sending their kids to us, what it is they need, and especially for those parents that often will not send their students. What will it take for us to earn your trust so that you will send your students to us, so we can build that in the next 5 years? Having union leadership meetings with all 3 of our unions, and again, in the month of August, finding a way to have this conversation with the Board of Education. As I'm looking at phase 3, again, October, December, is phase 2. In November, I'd like to bring a draft plan to this board to get some feedback. Taking that feedback and bringing a final draft in December for one last iteration before bringing it to you for final approval in January. I will say this though, we're not going to pause anything. We still have plans that we plan to roll out, things that we've talked to, gradual release, department chairs, deans, all of that will begin to roll out and will become part of that first year plan. We just know these are things that we're going to do. And then phase 4, communicating it. Again, it's going back to all of those groups and all of those communities that I just mentioned and really talking about, here's what we have. Creating short videos about an overview of our strategic plan, but then short videos about each of the goals, and then creating a website on our page that's truly that's forward facing and friendly to use, so people can find out about our strategic plan. Having a link in our Let's Talk dashboard. So when community members or stakeholders have questions about the strategic plan, there's a landing page that they can go to for that. And then we're looking at implementing the plan, right? We want to create this publicly facing dashboard that holds us accountable in real time to show for each strategy, for each action, where are we in implementation and have we been able to reach success? In the buildings, we will be creating 5-week reviews with our administrative staff because there will be actions that are aligned to schools. And so we want to make sure that throughout the course of the year, we're checking in with our schools at 8 times per year to make sure they're making the expected progress. And we'll be doing similar meetings with our central office staff as well. Providing again, quarterly reports to you, the yearly reports to the community, adjustments in August. And again, as we're shifting this, we do it now, but we just kind of do it in a cursory way. Just to build a practice for our administrative staff, for our administrators. When we bring you board memos, when we bring actions to this board, you're going to see a very tight alignment to our strategic plan and to our budget. Any questions about any of that? So again, I'm sorry, plan accountability. A lot of the things that we determine and we say that should be in this plan, I will find that connection to our administrators in the schools and start building out performance evaluations. That, you know, if they're hitting their targets, they'll get a better evaluation. If they're not, we'll have more conversations and their evaluations will not be so high. I do want to, I'm sorry I went so fast, I didn't talk about this. There is a survey that we do in this state called the 5 Essentials. The 5 Essentials survey is not very well liked outside of the city of Chicago. The city of Chicago does a very good job training administrators on what it means to be a well-organized school and what it takes to become one. What I believe the rest of the state doesn't like about the 5 Essentials survey is how it's scored, right? I'm not worried about that. What I'm more worried about is, are we doing the actions it takes to become well organized? If you do that, the scores will be where they should. So as we're building out our strategic plan, it makes a lot of sense to align our goals to the 5 Essentials. Because we're talking about supportive families, we're talking about effective leaders, we're talking about ambitious instruction, right? We're talking about, you know, the things that really matter for us. The research is clear on the 5 Essentials. Chicago's been doing it for over 30 years. When you're well organized, you can make significant growth. It could take multiple years to get well organized. I'm a little impatient, so I'm going to push us to get there faster. We started this today, right? One of those unique situations. We sat down with a team of administrators and teachers to start talking about components of the 5 Essentials that we're not scoring well on. There's 35 total components, 22 depending on who you ask. I break it down into 35. And we're having conversations around what central office needs to be doing in this area and what the schools need to do. We sat for 7.5 hours today. We're going to sit for another 7.5 hours tomorrow. And we're going to get through all 35 of those. So as we're building this plan, I think it's really a good use of resources to use a state-sponsored assessment that's scored by a third party that gives us really great actionable data. And if we can align our strategic plan to that as well, I think it will just move us faster move us further in a faster trajectory. I know of only one other district in the state that's doing it, and we had the opportunity to meet them. We were at the Model Schools Conference. So we are really going to, this is Moline, and I have a good relationship with that superintendent. And we're really going to pick their brains. First, I want to see how they did and what they did, and then I want to figure out how to make it better. We'll continue in that work. And then the last thing is just having that public facing dashboard. We're going to hold ourselves accountable and we're going to make it very public. So if we're doing great, everyone's going to know. If we're not doing great, everyone's going to know. And so, any questions or any feedback about that? I know I went fast, but I wanted to get through that. Also, I'm really excited about it.
Questions? And then just a comment, then the board will build your evaluation off of that. So then we would do the work then to take that strategic plan, the 5 Essentials and all those wonderful things you talked about. And then we tie it together and create an evaluation based on that. And then, I think I said it just briefly when we did the board retreat, is that we shouldn't be working on Mr. Mohup's evaluation one time per year. We should be working on it every month, because if we're finding something that we don't think is trending well, that we have to tell him and give him an opportunity to, to right that ship. And it's not fair to just evaluate him one time per year at the end of the year, right? It's like a constant evaluation. So once that's in place, the strategic plan, then his evaluation gets built from that, and then we kind of talk at least with one thing every month at a board meeting where he believe in rules.
And then will we also be implementing, board self-evaluations?
You should be.
Okay, maybe something
Mhm.
post the strategic and what we're working on, like, and performance once a year.
Absolutely.
Okay. Awesome.
Moving on. This is going into the action items, and so we've talked about all of these before. So unless there's something that you want to talk about, there's only three things that I really want to call to your attention, and that's a life safety resolution that LT is going to talk about that we want to have approved, the Loyola School of Health, the health clinic. I believe Alex will talk with us about that. And then the ISB VIT Spirit Exchange Program, which is an MOA that we need to do with our. But outside of that, is there anything that's on the agenda that you'd like to discuss? We've talked about all of these at length. There's been updates. But so looking at this life safety resolution, and I might kill this and LT will fix it for me, right? But this is just something we need to do to access the life safety funds that are in the budget to pay for the roof that we're redoing at Proviso East. You guys have approved this roof at the December 10th meeting. And so this resolution is something we just need to present to make sure we can, like I said, access those funds to pay for this project. LT, is there anything else you want to add?
Was that Proviso West, not?
Proviso West, I'm sorry. Any questions? And then Alex, the lawyer, we didn't update that, I'm sorry.
No, that's okay. Sorry. So we've been partnering with Loyola Bates School of Health Center for quite some time. This comes at a no cost opportunity to our students. Though it is housed at Proviso East, it is something that any student in the township can access. We know that there has been kind of this growing interest of exploring different opportunities at Proviso West in the Math and Science Academy. We've been in those discussions, just unfortunately, there isn't an opportunity right now. There's financial implications with that on the Loyola side and our side as well. But this is something that it's standard, just the 10th amendment that we are looking at. Everything is remaining the same. We enjoy this partnership. They have been phenomenal for us to have, providing a lot of services for our students.
Any questions?
We get a lot of students from West and PMSA, or is it primarily East?
It's primarily East.
So can we do a better job? Okay,
Speaking
marketing.
my language.
Yeah,
Yeah,
thank you.
absolutely. Absolutely. And part of that too, just with our own, we've been struggling with our nurses, just making sure that we have those individuals there. There's some things that we'll probably be hearing board updates along those lines as well. But yes, definitely need to increase the communication for our entire community on that.
Thank you.
Are they there all day during school hours? Like how does it work?
They are all day, there all day. They do have the actual doctor there during different times that they do some kind of shifts, but they do have the social worker aspect, the nurses there. So there are a number of different services providing through that office.
They could essentially do everything that a health clinic could do.
Yes.
Our challenge is just getting our parents to all fill out the paper. So if they don't fill out the appropriate paperwork, then they can't access that nurse and we still have a nurse for them. It's just not the Loyola Health Clinic.
Oh,
It would just be like a normal typical school nurse, which is a wonderful job in itself, but they just don't have the same resources that the Loyola Health Clinic would.
so if a kid is at school and gets sick, that kid goes to the school nurse, correct?
And while they could go to the health clinic, if they,
If the paperwork is updated.
Really, that's better registration.
and that's what we're looking.
Or communicate that. Right?
Yeah.
That there's options.
Like to complete that form ahead of time.
Well, even during registration at East, West, and PMSA, we should be having the parents fill out any, medicine forms, right? Like, if you need an Advil, the parent should fill that out right away. Because then instead of calling home, I have a headache, I'm sick, you can go to the nurse, get the Advil, because you have the paperwork signed, and the nurse can administer an Advil, so
Yes.
pull out.
I like that.
Yeah, it's a tremendous asset we have in the district. The next is the ISB Visiting International Teacher and Spirit Exchange Program. This is an MOU with the Proviso Teachers Union. And so, well, Jim, go ahead.
Sure. So, as you all know, hiring qualified bilingual teachers has been an issue in this district, and not just in this district, and nationwide. So we have exhausted all of our applicants that have applied through Apple Tracks. We've interviewed and hired as many as we could, but we still have several positions that are open that are bilingual. I reached out to ISB because I've used them before in a visiting international teacher program. And we did sign up to actually do that this year. We're trying to get the MOU approved by the PTA. PTU, yes, PTU, sorry. Not the PTA. And so basically, we're just getting their approval. They're going to be union paying staff members that have all the same rules and regulations that our current staff do, but we're hiring them from other countries. So we actually have 3 coming from Spirit international teachers, and then 1 coming from the VIT. So 1 is coming from Spain. That's the visiting the ISB one. And then we have 1 coming from Peru, 1 coming from the Dominican Republic, and 1 coming from Colombia. Yeah. So yeah, we have 4 teachers that we'd like to bring on. We still have vacancies, but the vacancies that we have are in areas like science and math that are special positions that these visiting international teachers, the majority of them have English. They can teach English, ESL, bilingual, or they can do world language Spanish. And one of these teachers is actually going to do world language Spanish because we had a vacancy there that we couldn't fill as well. So that's basically the plan.
And we still will, throughout the course of the year, we will be recruiting and looking for teachers of the year in the fill these spots. The alternative would be if we are not be able to use these services would be virtual teaching, which I don't think anyone in this room would enjoy.
Right, and we tried that, and some of the feedback that we got was not the best. We would much rather have live teachers in the classroom than any type of virtual situation.
Yeah, so just a big thanks to Mr. Kelly Harrison, HR, on all of their efforts. We are in a much better position coming into the start of the school year than we were prior. And even our teachers too were exploring some other opportunities as far as individuals that speak Spanish and looking at certain certifications. So we are very pleased with our position coming into the school year.
And we have the tools, so with the whole, and talking about the cell phone policy, they will have tools that will aid them in translation throughout the day that.
All these teachers are fluent in English as well. So they're fluent.
I mean, for the students.
For the students.
Right, that I guess they were using their cell phones for translation, so
Right.
they're, and the district will be.
We're looking at several technology options.
Okay.
And the goal is to not have everything translated anyway. We want to use strategies and learn
Correct.
English and using their first language to get them to that. But yeah,
Perfect.
we don't want everybody all the teachers translating everything for them.
Yeah, no, I agree. But I know that sometimes it tends to be a crutch, and so, yeah, like removing the crutch and finding the appropriate tools that will help lead them into the dual language.
Yes.
Perfect, thank you.
Okay. Are there anything else anyone wants to discuss from that list?
We can move on to approval actions. This is item 11. May I have a motion to approve the immediate termination of security leave for Curtis Robinson Jr.?
Second.
Ms. Smith, please call the roll. Yeah, 11. Usage. The first one is 11. And Dr. Fisher and Mr. Germany. Ms. Maladero?
Aye.
Mr. Dixon?
Aye.
Ms. Morris?
Dr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Ocampo,
Aye.
Ms. Smith, aye, Ms. Barbanek,
Aye.
motion carried.
May I have a motion to approve the immediate termination of security guard Jose Garcia?
Second.
Is that?
Ms. Molinaro,
Aye.
Mrs. Hickson,
Aye.
Ms. Morris,
Aye.
Dr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Ocampo,
Aye.
Ms. Smith, aye, Ms. Barbanek,
Aye.
motion carried.
May I have a motion to approve the immediate termination of security guard Alan Stallings?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Molinaro,
Aye.
Mrs. Hickson, Ms. Morris,
Aye.
Dr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Ocampo,
Aye.
Ms. Smith, aye, Ms. Barbanek,
Aye.
motion carried.
May I have a motion to approve the immediate termination of cafeteria monitor Juan Rodriguez?
So moved.
Second.
Ms. Molinaro,
Aye.
Mrs. Hickson, Ms. Barbanek,
Aye.
Ms. Morris,
Aye.
Dr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Ocampo,
Aye.
Ms. Smith, aye, motion carried.
May I please have a motion to approve the personnel reports and employee count dated 6/26/25?
So,
Second.
Call roll.
Ms. Molinaro,
Aye.
Mrs. Hickson,
aye.
Ms. Morris,
Aye.
Dr. Fisher,
Aye.
Mr. Ocampo,
Aye.
Ms. Smith, aye, Ms. Barbanek,
Aye.
motion carried.
Is there any old business for this evening? No, new business? No? Vote to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned at 8:08 p.m.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Good night, Mr. Swanson.
Let's finish your finger up.
Enjoy the days.
I'm saying indoors, like.
Yeah, the last couple, yeah. Enjoy the hot weather. The winter is so long.
That is true.
Ask for your feedback.
I'm good. Here you go.
Do we leave these here?
Please, thank you, yes.
No, she didn't.
The one I have.
Hey.
Sorry. Yeah.